of Battlehosts. Be a better gamer, build a better community.
Before we get started with the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about the Nova Open Charitable Foundation. Now, the topic of this podcast is Garagehammer, and the reason we're talking about Garagehammer is because most of the events this year have been canceled, and Nova is no exception. And for those of you that remember, Matt and I did travel to Nova last year, and it was one of the great events that we've been to. Las Vegas Open will always be my number one, but Nova is an amazing experience, and it's really unfortunate that they were not able to have their event this year because right now we're all dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. For those of you that don't know, the Nova Open Charitable Foundation really is the heart of the Nova event, and it's an annual drive that raises money for Doctors Without Borders, the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and the Fisher House, which builds homes for military and veteran families. And every year they raise money. I think last year they raised over $100,000, which is a lot. It's a ton. And most of the charities are basically because they are raffling off armies, units, models, and lots of stuff that is just painted to an incredible standard. So they can't have the Nova Open this year, but they're still going to have the raffle. The raffle can be found if you go online and you go to novaopenfoundation.org. You can find out all about the raffles that they're doing right now. And there's a lot of really cool stuff here. There's 56 raffles running on the site right now. There's a Blood Angels Primaris painted by Brent from Goobertown Hobbies, and there's a 216-piece Ultramarine Army painted by Dave Taylor. There's a Knight Errant painted by Duncan Rhodes, and there's a Daughters of Cain Army painted by Castlebrush Studios. 90% of every dollar raised goes to charity, and they do ship worldwide. So the other 10% covers the cost of shipping and operating the site and keeping the raffles going. The raffles will close Sunday, September 6th. So if you want to donate to a good cause and you want to give back to the community and you want to do it in a way that, hey, gives you a chance at winning an amazing painted army or an amazing painted model, go visit the Nova Charitable Foundation website. It's novaopenfoundation.org. I can't stress enough how amazing the Nova Open has been and how much good work their foundation does. And so if you're interested, the raffles, basically, I think they start at like $5, maybe $8. It's not a lot, and you could win an amazing army or an amazing miniature. So I think that's it's definitely worth going to. Remember, it closes September 6th, though. If you're hearing this and you're interested, browse the website, find something cool. You buy a couple tickets. You never know, you might win. And even if you don't win, you know that 90% of that money is going to go to a good cause. All right. So let's carry on with our regularly scheduled podcast where we talk Garagehammer. Welcome to Battlehosts, a podcast and website dedicated to helping you become a better 40K gamer and to build a better community of players. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight is Colin.
Hello.
If you like what you hear, subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube to catch all the latest episodes. You can follow us on Facebook under The Battlehosts. If you'd like to support The Battlehosts for as little as $1 a month, please visit patreon.com/thebattlehosts. If you join for $3 a month, you get access to our Discord chat where we discuss all things related to the hobby. All right. Well, Colin, we were actually recording at my house for the first time in a long, long time.
It's good to be back.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing about the two of us is that we're both basically housebound for since the pandemic started.
5 months.
We live lifestyles where we don't go out in public. We're home with our families for the most part. We both work from home, and so it's safe enough that we can meet and socially distance and record
and play 40K.
Yeah. So that's the episode we're talking today. We're going to talk about getting back to basics with Garagehammer, and Garagehammer is just kind of the term the community uses for basically playing at home.
Yeah,
and of course the tables that Games Workshop up until this edition was 6x4. Most people don't have those size of tables, and so therefore you had to play it in your garage, hence the term Garagehammer.
Right.
And for us, we actually play it in your garage.
And we actually, it is full-blown Garagehammer.
It is, yes. When it's 100 degrees outside, not so much.
No, it's just 98 in the garage.
Yeah, that's true. But it's what a lot of us started off doing. And with the current situation, it's what we're finding ourselves doing. I think that I thought optimistically we'd be coming out of this a lot sooner. I think you probably were a little more realistic about it. But we came to the conclusion, like just before the launch of this edition, that like the normal's not going to happen again. We're not doing things like we thought we were.
Not anytime soon.
No.
I don't think. And it's one of those things where, everybody determines their own comfort level.
Sure.
And my comfort level being more at risk and my wife being more at risk. And,
yeah.
It's just, and her, our in-laws and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it for me to go to the game store and spend the amount of time there. It's certainly not looking at events or anything.
Yeah.
That can't even happen. But
yeah, but we still want to play.
We still want to play, and it is important to have that time spent with friends is what I really miss, is that in-person time spent with friends that we have. Is after League, we'd go to Applebee's or whatever, go to Chicago, old Chicago, and just hang out and just talk 40K.
Yeah.
And it's just not the same having a conversation over Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, it isn't. It isn't. So that's kind of where we find ourselves now. And we'll talk a little bit about getting started, some of the benefits and drawbacks, and just kind of our plans, because I think we're in this for the long haul, as we said.
For the foreseeable future. I think if Boise Cup happens at the end of June next year, I'll be super happy.
Yeah, and
I'll be ready to go. Hopefully, I'm feeling comfortable enough to be in a room with 100 people.
Sure.
God willing, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard to
it's hard to envision what's going to happen.
In August of 2020, it's impossible to look 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road,
especially
and
where
try
we're
and
at.
Plan something.
Yeah, we don't. And so and that's fine though.
You could be in Mad Max, like literal. We could be playing Gorka Morka for real in 8 months. The way this year is gone.
Yeah, actually, that's probably true. In the meantime, though, we have Garagehammer.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't listened to our other episodes about 9th edition, take a listen and get ready, because really the thing about it is we wanted to still play, and this edition is a great edition, and it's just a weird time to have a new edition out. And so this is really Garagehammer being the topic of our show, but also what we're going to be doing, because we want to play this edition,
right?
Because it's great.
It's a bummer that the edition got released. I mean, everything about this is a bummer.
Yeah,
but this is the most first world bummer of the group, which is that, we didn't get the Wild West of a new edition.
No.
And just the wacky list that people would play, and just that kind of fresh, everybody kind of getting around and trying to figure it out. We really just missed it. Yeah. It's just not happening.
Yep.
So that's a bummer, but, homeschooling my kids is more of a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. There's other things, and it's true. It's going to be looked back on probably the weirdest edition launch, and probably it won't happen again, right? I imagine we're talking like a very a once in a generation sort of thing that's going on right now. And so, we'll see. Yeah. Now, if you're listening to us from the future, way in the future, basically we're talking about COVID-19. So right now and in 2020, it's raging, and we live in Idaho, and it's really, we had a lot of spiked cases. Cases went up, way up.
Yeah, we did really well for the first few months, and it had flattened off, and it was under control. Yeah, and then as the state reopened, it's just gone gangbusters. So we got a little hope with League resuming. Yeah, and we played for a couple weeks, and then cases just absolutely exploded, and the game store curtailed their hours and curtailed their public gaming space, and that was when we were both like. Me personally, I was like, okay, I need to build a table. Yeah. This is the only way I'm really going to play this game. Yeah. And we had the space. I had the time. We don't park cars we have a 2-car garage at our house, and we don't park cars in it. So I don't really want a permanent table in my garage. Sure. I want to be able to move it around. I want to be able to kind of stow it. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it became pretty clear that was the path forward. And once I built, it's kind of a Field of Dreams situation. Like once I built the table, all these other things. Like, oh, well, what about terrain, and what about this and that? So it really opened the door. Yeah. To playing 9th edition, but also just kind of taking ownership of our game. Yeah, yeah, you're right. We were starting to do well, and we went to League a couple weeks, and it was, the game store had to close at 8:00, but then it got really serious, and then it closed at 6:00, and then after that, we're like, well, we can't. There's no reason to go there. Like, there's no reason.
game store basically shutting down, but having a lot of restrictions in place, we could go on maybe a Saturday, but even then with what's been going on now, this was our option. And I really appreciate the fact that you built this table, because if you didn't, we wouldn't be playing these games.
Right. Yeah. It's not, we're very fortunate to be in a position that I have the tools to build a table, and I have I can buy the lumber and do all that. And that I have a space to game, because even people that, might have this, like, that's the biggest thing when talking about Garagehammer is like, it takes a lot of space.
It does.
It's not just the table. You need a couple feet on either side of the table. So like, you're not just putting a 6x4 sheet of plywood on a coffee table and playing 40K. Like you need a lot of space, and a lot of people just don't have that. If you're living in an apartment, you're SOL really, unless you're going to have to convert your living room to a gaming space.
Yeah, you'll have to move things around, set it up, and then take it back down.
And if you're married and living in an apartment, the odds of that happening are
your spouse would have to be playing with you or something like that. Yeah.
So it's very, the thing about Garagehammer is it's very space intensive. Mm-hmm. You have to have terrain. Yeah. You have to have a tableware mat or something.
Yeah.
But terrain takes up a ton of space.
Yeah.
I don't even feel like I have that much terrain, and I have 2 giant totes full of terrain.
It's amazing how the totes can sort of gather over time.
Oh God!
So,
and
what was your experience before with Garagehammer? I mean, like before you came, obviously you came to Idaho several years ago, and we play at League and all that kind of stuff. But when you first started playing 40K, were you playing in somebody's home? Were you playing?
My neighbor's garage.
Okay.
I mean, he had a table in there. We played on a dining room table or something, and that was really who I gamed with.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, when I got back in the hobby, it was just going down to my FLGS, Gamescape North in Santa Fe, where the game store my friend now owns. But I really didn't. It was really kind of my formative years and my early years in the hobby where, 10 years old, you're not just cruising down to the game store to go play a couple games. It was all Garagehammer at my friend's house. So, and since then it's been, living in apartments and just going to college and doing all that stuff. So, and living in the South Bay in an apartment, we certainly didn't have the space.
Yeah. So
to do any kind of
you switched to gaming
setup.
store, basically play.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Nobody I gamed with had the space to set up something in their house in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Carl.
Yeah.
So Carl would really be the one. It's not really garage. It's like classy Garagehammer.
Yeah.
Where he had he had enough space that he had enough of a dedicated area to where he had gaming tables, and he have a couple people over to play, or
have
a few people over to play, and he had the terrain, and but he's been building that up for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
So now in his new place, he has, in the Astronomicon, he has the whole gaming room, but that's an outlier.
Yeah.
Right. Not a lot of people have that.
Have the
in their
space
house.
or that. Yeah. They're able to do that. Yeah.
And there's just a level of dedication. I mean, even in just the last month since I built the table, now I'm like, okay, well, I'd like more obscuring terrain.
Sure.
So, or I'd like more dense terrain. So, now I'm thinking about, well, how do I make trees on a desert table without just doing palm trees or whatever? And I needed more line of sight blocking. So now I'm thinking about foam and how am I going to do this? So it's another layer to the hobby. And all of that stuff takes up a huge amount of space.
Yeah.
It's very space intensive.
Yeah. And I think that's why, I mean, my own experience, I started as an adult, though. I didn't play as a kid. So I got the game for myself and my son. We tried to play on the dining room table. I learned really quick that dining room tables are not 6x4. I'm like, this is weird. What a weird size. Yeah. There's no tables that are made at 6x4. Like it's a unique size. Then we sort of quit because he wasn't interested, and I think it was the beginning of 6th, and I went down to the gaming store, and somebody came up and said, "Hey, you want to come down next Saturday to play?" And that's pretty much how I've always played. It's always been meeting somebody at a gaming store,
right? Because
like you said, there's a space issue. And sometimes it's more fun to meet at like a third-party location and go do something afterwards. So it's just different, right? Garagehammer is kind of a commitment that you it's like having friends over, essentially.
Right. Well, and before, it's nice to leave my house and go to a game store and hang out with my friends.
Yes, it is.
That's part of it.
You're going out
just
for the
going
evening,
out to hang out and I had 2 small kids and So that is part of going to the game store.
Yeah.
Is just getting out of the house and going and hanging out with my friends and going to get a bite to eat and eating some bad wings. And now that that's not an option, it's not a realistic option for me. Yeah, it is like hosting people with a twist that I can't just invite just anybody over to my house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it does narrow my pool of available opponents.
It's only having a board game night with some people.
Right.
And because even then you can explain the board game to them. 40K is a very unique thing. That's for sure.
Not just that, but in speaking to the current climate, I can only really invite people over that I'm confident, take the same level of precaution that I take.
That's true.
In their life.
That is true.
And it's a little more, I have small children and stuff, so I'm not just inviting anybody over to my house to hang out in my house.
Yeah, so we're talking about how it's not something that it's not our default mode, right? It's not something we would normally do, but it's unlikely there's going to be any events. I see that there are some events that are kind of popping up, but these are small events, and everyone who loves 40K is just, they want to hear more about it because it's at least something. But these are not going to be the events that we normally would have with an edition launch. I think LVO might happen, but I'm not counting on that, frankly.
It's not going to be 900 people.
It's sad to me because LVO is like, I love it. It's my thing I do every year. I don't know what's going to happen from now till then. It's hard to say. It's a ways impossible out there. But
they could cure this thing next month. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Odds are that's not really how science works, but
but I'm staring at a world where, so much of my painting and playing has been toward an event, toward a thing that I do. And now I'm like, wait a minute, I don't actually have an event to play for a long time. And so now I'm like, well, now I'm in a weird spot where probably a lot of players are. Like so often this podcast, we're like, hey, get out of your garage and go to an event. Now it's like, well, we can't go to an event, so let's go back to our garage.
Right.
And now I'm sort of learning, like, what does this mean to be a player that just plays friends, in their garage? And we can play more competitive stuff, and we can discuss it beforehand, but it's just a different type of play, which I'm kind of actually learning to appreciate a lot more than I think I ever did in my rush to go out to play in an event. Right.
I think it's easier with the edition launch because we're both figuring out, even though, it's not, 40K is a complicated game. And with COVID, like, we haven't really been able to play as much as we usually do since February.
Yeah.
It's not like we're holed away just playing 40K, 4 games a week trying to figure this thing out. But one of the things that I think is the big advantage of going down to the game store too is that you play so many different kinds of players and so many different kinds of lists.
Yeah.
That now with Garagehammer, there's like 4 guys that I'm comfortable playing.
Yeah.
And they all pretty much play 1 or 2 armies. And so it creates this kind of closed system for gaming where you're only really playing. Thankfully, like, it's like Snyder and Ben and the good, like, if I want to sharpen my skills, I have access to really good players.
Yeah.
But I also am not really at the point learning a new army, learning a new edition. I'm just not at the point where I'm like, oh, I need to hone this list.
Yeah.
Like,
because we're not honing it for anything really. Yeah.
Who knows? There could be 2 FAQs and, a chapter approved between what I'm doing now and what I might actually bring somewhere to play at even just an RTT at some point. So, like, events have never been a motivating thing for me. It's always I can't say never because
you paint to events.
I'll paint to an event.
But you're not switching lists around to an event, and you're not going to. I mean, you've been going to like sort of more local of the stuff in Spokane, but like you haven't gone to LVO.
No, this was the year I was going to go too. This was the year that I was going to go to LVO.
Yeah.
And my wife was going to come, and like Michael's wife was going to come, where they're going to hang out by the pool while we went to LVO, and it was going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then
and then probably that's
like everybody else's plans.
So, but I mean, the game is too fun not to play, and there's only so much painting and bat reps, and because when this whole pandemic started in March, everything got shut down, and I was told everyone cleared out their desks. I grabbed this stuff from my desk and I started working from home, and I haven't seen my work building since since it was cold outside in March. But yeah, April and May rolls around and it's just still weird and kind of novel. And like, you're painting and you're kind of, watching some bat reps or whatever, but you're not really engaged playing the game.
Right.
But it was okay because it was a new edition change anyways. No one wanted to play 8th edition when we knew 9th edition was on the way. So I was like, well, okay, I don't want to play anyways. What am I playing?
Right.
But once the new edition comes out, it's like, no, I want to play now.
Right.
So yeah. So now we get started with Garagehammer.
Yeah.
And the first thing is that, like you said, it's space intensive. It does take some chunks of space. It
takes some space. So the biggest space obviously is the table itself.
Yeah.
And I built my own table,
which is lumber, right?
With just lumber, like 4x4s and 1x4s, and a few 2x4s. But just lumber. I mean, lumber you can get at Home Depot for not that expensive.
Yeah.
And Home Depot will cut to length if you ask them to.
Yeah.
So I just have a skill saw right now, which I use to cut like the 1x4s and stuff, but the big 4x4s, I just had them cut the table length. Anyway, what a lot of people will do like folding tables with like a sheet of plywood on top.
Sure.
That's not really as durable as I wanted my table. I wanted something a little bit more durable, a little bit more stable.
Yeah, the plywood sheet that kind of floats over the table is always a problem.
If you bump it or
it slides around,
it's hard to find. And folding tables are not cheap.
No.
Folding tables are not cheap. Even just like the little pop-up ones you can get, Home Depot, they're like $30 a piece.
Yeah. And typically you'll need 2 of them because you don't. And the thing about it is that 4x6 was always so difficult. Now at 44 inches by 60, the 5 feet length is nice.
Right.
Because a lot of I'm looking at my Lifetime folding table here, which is that sort of like that plasticky, gray plastic and it's 5 foot. It's 5 foot long, right?
Oh, nice.
If it was 6, no.
Right.
But the dimensions now actually you can sort of make more things work for you. So
yeah, but the dimensions now too, you'd have to cut down a sheet of plywood if you wanted to.
That's true.
And your game mat and all this other.
That's true.
Or you just get painter's tape. But I wanted a 6x4 table because I wanted to be able to play other game systems. If I want to play an Age of Sigmar game, Age of Sigmar still use 6x4.
Yeah.
If I wanted to play a larger 40K game, I could play on 6x4. It's just more. It's easier to shrink the game space than it is to expand the table.
Sure.
What I ended up doing was I ended up building just a frame with the legs and supports for the legs just around the outside. And then I built a tabletop that kind of was in 2 pieces that then clamped together around the frame.
Okay.
So basically what I can do, I can take the tabletop off in 2 pieces. So those are they're like 3 feet by 4 feet. But then I can take the legs and I can take the whole frame and tip it up on its side.
Yeah.
So they're so it's a 3 foot by 3 foot box, basically, that my gaming table fits in. Yeah. And in a 2-car garage, I can find a 3 foot by 3 foot space for me to kind of tuck this thing away.
And then you could, what's funny is you could literally, like if you needed to store it away for a long time, you could put a bunch of tubs around it. I mean, it literally could just be a frame that holds a bunch of stuff in your garage,
Right, exactly. But it goes from taking up 24 square feet to taking up 9 square feet, which is a huge, huge difference. I mean, I haven't taken it down since I put it up, but I haven't really had cause to.
Yeah.
But I could.
But it's not, it's not that hard to build a table, and it doesn't take that much like lumber, really. I mean, it's pretty simple.
It's pretty straightforward. I think I made it more complicated than you probably have to with like the clamps and everything like this. And I used spare cut off lumber that I had in my garage already. I had like MDF planking. But anyway, it took like a week to get everything kind of all sorted out around everything else that I have going on in my life. But actual time involved was probably under 2 hours to build a table. Yeah. And I really like it. The other advantage for me for building the table was being able to build it to whatever height I wanted it to be. So I built it a little bit tall. I think it's like 37 inches to the gaming surface because I'm 6'3". You're not.
No.
But I wanted a taller table because usually I'm having to bend over further to get to the gaming surface. And, it's my house. I don't want to do that. So
sure.
It's just more comfortable to have a little bit taller surface. So I built it but I also realized that my friends are not all over 6 feet tall. So they're generally 5'9" to 5'11". So
but it works fine. You're saying you put a little more height into it than like a dining room table because you're not. Yeah. It's more like a stand up sort of table, like a bar stool kind of table.
Yeah, and so for me, it's just more comfortable gaming, and then I have bar height chairs that I can bring in, and we can sit at those while we play, and so it's great. I love it.
Sure,
I love it.
Yeah, and it didn't. I mean, it was something that was, like I said, it wasn't that difficult.
It wasn't hard to build. No, lighting is an issue, but I ordered a like $25 shop light off Amazon.
Sure.
And
like everyone else,
like everybody else,
Amazon.
And it's gotten to the point where I like look something up on Amazon, and if they don't really have it, or if it takes like 3 weeks to reach me, I'm like, what is this?
What is
this? I thought you guys were like in charge of everything. I thought you guys controlled everything. How is this supply chain like 3 weeks?
So I work from home. I look out my window. Every day I see the UPS guy and the Amazon guy, and then they're not always stopping by my house,
right?
But they're always driving by past, and so it's just constant. It's constant.
Oh, absolutely. And Jeff Bezos is going to take over the world.
He is, yeah, for sure. But anyways, you got a shop light now, so
I have a shop light, and it's just a couple hooks in the ceiling, and you hang it from the chain, and it has the little and I put it kind of in the area that I expect the table to be, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's it. So total investment, lumber, and the lighting is well under $100.
Yeah.
It's probably $70.
Yeah. And if you don't, you should check to see what your dining room table is like. So like right now, I went to check my dining room table, and we have a dining room, and the table is actually 43.5 inches sort of width. So I'm like, good enough.
Yeah.
So there's things likely you might find things work now that you actually have in your house.
Yeah. And what you can do with those is you can just have a table topper. If you have a 5 foot long table, but it's only 3 feet wide, you can just get 60 by 44 piece, again, like at Home Depot. They will cut it for you. Have them like cut it in half.
Yeah.
You just put it on your table, and that's a lot easier to store than an entire kind of table setup.
Yeah.
But it's not that much. It's not that much of an investment. It's not that much of a stretch to find space for a couple sheets of 1/4 inch thick plywood or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're all fans of the mat as a playing surface. So the Realms of Battleboard are horrible, and I know
I have one, and I painted it, and I never use it.
They look great. They're terrible,
fantastic.
Though. So now
I think like your model sliding down the hillside,
or your dice just clattering all over the place. And if you have one and you painted it, obviously it looks really good.
Yeah,
but I'd want a dice tray or something.
I should have just flocked the whole thing.
Yeah, that's probably the only way to make it really work. But I think we're all like the Table War or the FLG or the fat mats before they became Table War, and then FLG is split there.
Right.
But I think most people should have at least one or two of those. They're just a great surface.
They're a great surface.
They're the best playing surface that there is out
I think
there.
so. I have a set of tablescapes from Secret Weapon Miniatures.
Oh, okay.
Which I really like. Actually, I haven't broken those out yet, but they're just 1 foot by 1 foot square tiles. So you can actually assemble them into like a 5x4.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Instead of a 6x4, because they're 1 foot by 1 foot. But they don't have the elevation change that a Realm of Battle board does.
Yeah.
They're all pretty much a low elevation. They have a little elevation and a little interest, right? But it's a lot more approachable than the Realm of Battle board, where it has these huge elevation changes on those hills. So that's I just want to mention them because it is a good gaming surface, and it's a fun project to paint, and I really like the product. So I just wanted to mention it. That being said, they're in a box next to my table. My Table War mat is on my table.
Yeah, and those mats, the mats themselves they're a printed design, so they're better. They're 100 times better than like the green felt that people would use or what have you, right? They look great.
Yeah.
But they're not. I've seen people do like like Tabletop Tactics, for example, they'll have like little rocks or something to kind of, so instead of having like a building that kind of sits and it's just sitting on top of a mat, they'll put little rocks or little pieces of flock or things to make it look a little more 3D, because the mat it's just a flat printed surface.
Right.
So there's some of that too. It doesn't have that depth that a Realm of Battle board or something else might have, or the Forge World.
Oh, the Forge World tiles.
Yeah.
Those things are awesome.
That's gaming at a whole nother level, though. I think
or like the one tile that I made for my Adeptus Titanicus board.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to make the other three, but
yeah,
because then I made one piece of scatter terrain and was like, oh, this is way easier to paint and store and build, and what am I going to do with 4 2x2 custom tiles? Like it's not going
to work.
We have room. We don't have that much room.
Yeah, so the mat as the playing surface is the most really, and also it's great now because the changes. I only have 4x6 mats, but we just used painter's tape. We just measured it out very carefully and just slapped painter's tape down, and it takes. Doesn't take very long, and it shortens the board.
Yeah, I'm not cutting that.
No, I'm not going to cut the mats. No,
it's just not.
You can do a chalk line. You can snap a chalk line too.
You can probably snap a chalk line. The Table War. So Table War and FLG and everybody now has.
They make the smaller versions.
60x44 mats, which is great. They're only like $60.
Yeah,
which is not bad at all.
No.
So at a certain point, when I want to change. If I want a different mat or something, I'll probably pick up a 60x44 mat.
$60 is not bad.
$60 is not bad for a gaming surface mat.
Yeah.
But I'm not running out to get it because I have to play on it. I can play on that size surface right now. It just takes 13 cents worth of painter's tape. So
it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
When you're playing Garagehammer 2, once you get that first table looking really good and it's themed, you're probably going to want like a second table. You're probably going to want at least a couple different variations. But really, once you get the surface, then you go to the terrain. And this is kind of where you can make the terrain work really well with the surface. You have kind of a light, sandy, rocky color, like a beige almost, which fits
very orange.
Which
there's a lot of orange.
Fits your sort of Blood Angels recon force thing, but. At that point, though, we're like, okay, what do we do for terrain? How can we paint it to make it look like this kind of thing? That's where things get exciting. So the terrain pieces, I think we found that you need obscuring pieces of terrain, like about 2 floors, or you need a couple of them. We have found that dense cover, like forests, work really well. But it's a -1 to hit as the line passes through it. Having a couple of big chunky things like that on the board work really well. Having a couple smaller pieces of ruins and obstacles, but we're still playing with it. We're still trying to figure out like what the best terrain layout is.
The dense cover, I think, completely changed the game.
Yeah.
I think it made it way less, and we both took pretty shooty lists. I was playing a lot of tanks for Blood Angels, and you were playing your AdMac, which are both very shooty armies. I was taking the shooty Blood Angels list for whatever reason, but
we were playing around.
Yeah, but having that -1, made the turn 1, turn 2 little less severe than they would have been if we just had like line of sight blocking terrain.
Yeah,
and both our armies are kind of fast enough to kind of mitigate line of sight blocking terrain in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to have that like line of sight blocker in the middle, just a big old honking hill or whatever in the middle. And then that dense cover was really clutch.
Yeah. I talked to in the Discord chat, I kind of asked a little bit about like, what are everybody else's experiences right now playing? And a lot of people just aren't playing, they just are not able to. Garagehammer is the one thing that you can try to do. I think that it was how we're playing right now, given the situation that we're in. But we have to take COVID precautions. So, we wear masks and we ensure that we have our own dice, and we are being very careful, even though the two of us live lifestyles of sort of hermit levels of lifestyle with our families, right? We have our families with us, but we are not out and about doing these things. No. We don't have jobs. We're going out and meeting other people, whatever. So we're actually, from a risk infection standpoint, really, really low, and we keep it that way.
Kind of as low. I'm as low as I can really get.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Mark's like, oh, Mark's coming over to play a game. And I'm like, yeah, Mark takes it seriously. He'll be all right.
Yeah.
You know, Michael takes it seriously.
Yeah.
You know,
and so that's the thing. You know, when you're inviting people over, you want to ensure that they're at that level that you're at, the comfort level, or you're at the level that they're at, right? There's a level there. Despite the fact that we have a pretty low risk, we still take precautions.
Right.
And I think
still
that's kind
open
of
the doors on the garage because it is summer in Idaho. So, I mean, it's like 90
it's hot.
degrees.
It's
so,
hot.
But we get that air circulation. And
no, it's nice. Yeah, for sure. The nice thing about, I guess, the benefits to playing Garagehammer, there's no pressure to build or play army for events, right? You know, I'm not building, like the other day, I'm like, well, what should I paint? I'm like, oh, well, I don't know. I guess
whatever
I'll just work on whatever the heck I want. And it's just a weird freedom to have this, you know? Your meta, quote unquote, is the garage.
Right.
You can always kind of control, you know, who's playing what.
Right.
You play what you want to play. Like you don't have to play something because of for whatever reason or practice something.
Right.
Or practicing learning the game. We are practicing like how to get better at the basics of the game, which I think is actually kind of more exciting because it's a new edition. So it makes it kind of exciting to learn that.
Yeah, and only since I've moved to Idaho, I've been motivated by events.
Yeah.
So, and I have a apocalyptic collecting style. I paint to collections. I don't paint to lists.
Sure.
Until I have an event. And then I'm like, I have to paint X and Y for a list. But so for me, it's just kind of painting, I'm just all over the place, painting random stuff. And then I go to play a game with painted models and I'm like, these don't go together.
Yeah.
I need to paint more of X or more of Y. But it's interesting, like, you know, some people just don't have the kind of mental capacity they're just exhausted. They don't have the time to paint, or they don't have the interest in it. Yeah. You know, we're on a competitive team and like not a lot of guys painting.
No.
You know, because they're just they don't know what they're going to bring. They don't know what they're going to play. They don't know when they're going to go to an event.
Yeah.
So, and that's what motivates them to paint.
Yeah.
Is just, I need to get this painted for an event.
Sure.
Or I want to get this painted for an event. So, because they're not buying surplus units.
Yeah.
You know, where I'm like, I want to make a Terminator chaplain. Yeah. I'm never going to use a Terminator chaplain.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if all you do is paint for events, then, like you said, you're not buying surplus units.
Right.
So you're not buying things because you want to add to a collection of stuff.
Right.
Now, the flip side of that is over time, your collection as it grows, things change all the time of what's good and what's not good.
We've had this conversation many times.
You know, so it really, Garagehammer definitely benefits the collection. I have a collection of I have this army collection that I'm adding to that I want to play, but you know, hey, maybe it's not so good. Or an event, I want to pull these 4 things from my collection to play. But you always have that collection.
The Brandon Grant method.
Yes. Yeah.
Where Brandon Grant's been playing at Imperial Guard so long, he has everything.
Yeah.
So when the meta changes or his list changes, he has it.
He's like, well,
he'll add stuff.
I'll grab from shelf B.
Right.
There you go.
Right. But he has a collection durable enough to
for sure.
weather that. So he doesn't always have to be painting stuff because he's not changing all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
But which is where that's goals. Right. Yep. I want to have enough Primaris Blood Angels that I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to add a unit here or there. The next Primaris Lieutenant gets released. I'm right there, ready to paint it.
Yeah. Or if you are painting for an event, you're only painting like a couple units. Because you've got the base there.
Right. For us, one of the things that I wanted to touch on was just, you know, when you said that the meta is your garage.
Yeah.
Like the meta is like who you're playing.
Yeah.
And in the podcasting world and the YouTubing world, like everybody has their opinion about units and point changes and just take it off the shelf and give it a whirl.
Yeah.
There's never been a better time.
There's never been a better time to play around with whatever the heck you want to try.
Yeah. Just try it out. Yeah. It's fine. Like it's not, and maybe one of the things that I really enjoy is just trying out new units, or I just finished painting. Like I have a unit of 10 Death Company in a Land Raider Proteus that I'll throw on the table at some point.
Sure.
I would never take that down for League ever.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to show up and just get hosed because we play in a competitive league.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity, and they're probably okay.
Yeah.
They're probably all right. I mean, Land Raider in dense cover is pretty survivable, and 10 Death Company never hurt anybody. It never hurts to have those guys lying around. But it's an iconic thing that I wanted to paint, I wanted to do, and I want to game with. Yeah. And this kind of gives me that space to if I know that you're coming over and you're not bringing you're trying out stuff too. You're like, hey, what do I think of this unit? Or you can look at a unit on paper, and this happens to everybody, but you can look at a unit on paper and go, oh, this unit's okay.
Yeah.
But the way that it fits your play style, the way that it fits your type of list, maybe that's an all-star unit for you that you may have just dismissed because the internet said it was terrible. Or the internet said, oh, well, it's too expensive at 38 points, but it'd be great at 34 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's worth the extra 4 points to me because this unit kicks ass every time I put it on the table.
Yeah.
But if I never put it on the table and I just took the internet's word for it,
and that's the benefit to Garagehammer is that you have all the time to finish the games, or in our cases, we don't finish games.
Turn 3.
Because it's kind of like, wow, we've been going at this for 4 hours now.
Yeah.
But you can also talk through the rules of the units. You can kind of understand what's happening, and there's plenty of time afterwards to talk about it after the game is over with. A lot of times when you're playing in a store, you're finished and you're just packing things up, and you don't really have that conversation afterwards. And like when we go out for drinks afterwards, we're usually talking about something completely different or whatever. But when you're playing Garagehammer, you can really literally talk through things in the moment, but especially afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's the time, the limitations. Without time limitations, you've got a lot of time to just, like I said, try whatever you want and discuss it afterwards.
Or even in game, like we've had moments in the game where we're like, well, I'm going to move this over here, just see what happens. Yeah. Or like, hey, what if, if I shoot that unit with, 5 frag storm cannons, frag storm launchers, what happens? What would that look like? And we'll talk through things like, target priority and things like that. Because we can. I don't know. It's just weird. It's stuff that we wouldn't like. I think when we show up for league night, we kind of get a little more.
It's like a game. It's like a game I'm going to play. Yeah.
Like I'm practicing my craft.
Yeah.
Kind of like I need to learn the mission, play to the mission, do this, do that.
And I'm simulating game conditions.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think in the garage, you're learning. It's like a learning environment.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm learning this game. I'm learning my army. We both play armies that we've played AdMech primarily when you come over, and they just got a ton of new units. They got a new Psychic Awakening.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of new stuff to explore there. Yeah. I just started Blood Angels really right before COVID.
Yeah.
So I haven't had a lot of reps, and I can read online about how great Space Marines are, but they're not necessarily plug and play. There are a lot of strats, and there are a lot of, this is a lot of,
it's a new addition, and we have new armies or new units that we're trying out, right? That we're anxious to try out,
right?
And that's how we're kind of approaching it. So we're learning new things,
right? And then they come out with Indomitus, and I'm like, oh, Assault Intercessors, like, ooh,
for sure, yeah.
How do these guys work? And then I charge somebody, I'm like, oh, they work,
yeah,
they do that thing really well,
yeah.
So I think that I like that about Garagehammer is a kind of, it's not exactly like a proving ground. It's just we're coming over to, and that's our approach.
Yeah.
I know guys that play at home who are like,
they want to play an actual game, start to finish, and it's a game. Yep.
Yeah. They want to set the game conditions to what they enjoy playing.
Which you can do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. The game
store. What I won't do is Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah. And I think that's what we decided. I know a lot of people like to play that, and they're getting games in, but I can't do it. I mean, it's not something I feel like I feel like I'm missing something, and that's all there needs to be said, really. It's not for me.
It's just not that's not the part of 40K that I love.
Yep.
Is the just moving stuff and rolling dice part.
Yeah.
It's just not for me.
Yeah. Agreed.
And a lot of people enjoy it. More power to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Just however you want to enjoy 40K, enjoy 40K.
Yeah. Now, Garagehammer does have some drawbacks. First of all, you have to coordinate it.
It's hot.
Right? And
it's hot.
It's warm right now in the garage. You have to have a space for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes your house just isn't set up to host it.
Sometimes you have 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds running around while
Sometimes you got kids running around
while you're playing.
And then it's obviously more of a laid back environment for that matter. There could be some rules issues that you could be getting wrong. Like you and your friend could be screwing up a rule and not know it.
Right.
We've seen this when we've had events and somebody comes out for the first time. They'll play, then they'll go, wait a minute, Bob played that army and he's played it this way this whole time. I didn't realize he did that. So if you're only playing within like a small group of people, sometimes if you're not out there watching Pat reps or really understanding rules, as a group, you may be getting the rule wrong constantly,
right?
Over and over again,
right?
So there's always that, and you may not even know it.
It can be. I mean, even, really good players get rules wrong or they read it in a different way unintentionally.
Yeah.
I know I do.
Yeah.
We usually try to get to the bottom of it, and, we're more tuned in, I think, than...
We spend more time seeing people playing the rules. Right. We learn about the rules. We talk about the rules, but yeah.
But we still like the new terrain system is complicated.
We
still are feeling our way through.
And we haven't messed with obstacles yet, And I think that there's certain things we really got to play around with a little more.
And I think that's part of it too, is we really have to get it on the table in a game and play it.
Yeah.
To really see how that's going to interact.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of a lot of just rules in general.
Yeah.
But, until we see dense cover sounded good. It sounded useful. You're like, ooh, area terrain and -1 to hit. Like, that sounds like it could be good.
Yeah.
But once we got on the table and we saw how it affected movement, how it affected deployment, how it affected the objectives, and it really had a profound effect on the game.
Sure.
And like that decision of when do I jump out of dense cover had a huge effect on the game. So I personally really undersold certain aspects of those terrain rules because on paper is a lot different than actually on the table.
Well, and I think, we talked about it, Garagehammer being a closed system, and there's some drawbacks to that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. I mean, you could also go out and talk to other people, interact with the community, ask questions for sure, and then, like we said, try new things. So if you have a table and you're kind of tired of playing on the same table over and over again, then that's probably the cue to let's change up the tables, let's change the terrain up, let's try these things like you said, dense cover or obstacles.
Right.
We have a laundry list of things that we want to try out with this edition, and obviously we can't get to it all at once, but even though Garagehammer's closed system, I think you constantly should be looking to make some changes to make it fresh and exciting, Yeah,
absolutely. As the person with the garage
and
the table, it's been a fun little addition to the hobby. Whereas before, I've had terrain for years.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of the Wall of Martyrs terrain that they had a few years ago. Unfortunately, it's not the most useful terrain GW's ever made because it's all about an inch tall.
Yeah.
So it doesn't block line of sight from practically anything.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about terrain before I built this table and before we started having Garagehammer. It just wasn't. I would think about it in the context of if I wanted to do an Armies on Parade board or something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking my terrain down to we're very fortunate. Our game store has a lot of great terrain thanks to Aaron and Matt, and it's a very well supported game store with terrain and mats and everything. So we have the luxury of not worrying about that. We can just take our armies to the game store and play.
Sure.
And play on different maps and play on different terrain layouts. Right. But I don't have that option. I have the terrain that I have.
Yeah.
And if I want to change things up, now I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll build a hill to put this other piece of terrain on to make it line of sight blocking. And maybe I had these busted Land Raiders and Rhinos and stuff for a long time for terrain that I just never had really the reason to build. And I was like, oh, well, I need some kind of line of sight blocking or area terrain, or I'll paint these up. And so it added kind of another little vein in the hobby for me to think about and just kind of see every once in a while, just give me a little project that isn't just army painting.
Yeah.
It's just something different.
Yeah, because the terrain I have is all the functional terrain you take to a so it's meant to augment a big event. So I can take it. I have 5 tables, but it's not. None of it's super themed. I mean, they're themed and the colors are themed, but I have only one that's actually really pretty detailed and looks really good. The rest of them are just sort of real functional terrain. They are the kind of stuff you go to, if you go to LVO, they have the very functional sort of the MDF terrain that they produce. It's a lot. It is because it's the Frontline Gaming MDF terrain. So it doesn't look amazing. It looks okay. It looks good. It's functional. That's about it. But now with Garagehammer, you really want to make the time. You almost you want to take the time to make the table the third player,
right?
The third thing. Yeah. It becomes more. It's fun too. Super fun.
It is fun, and it's the thing that I like about terrain is it's going to be my table. It's going to work no matter what army I play.
Sure.
This terrain's going to be applicable.
Mm-hmm.
If I make kind of generic hills or tree groves or whatever I end up doing for that, I can use it in Age of Sigmar and 40K.
Sure.
So that's the other part I like about Garagehammer, though. It's like, oh, you're at my house, the table's going to match my basing, the terrain's going to match my theme, like my army's going to look really slick on all this terrain and on the mat, and you're going to have,
your stuff's going to stand out a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Bring your snow basing to my desert table. But it's fun to have that extra little that kind of gives, because it's such a different, for me, I spend so much time painting armies. I spend so much time painting, I paint a ton of infantry.
Yeah.
That to have then these big, wide angle, I'm just going to dry brush and, throw hardware rust effects paint around and all this stuff is a really nice break from that. It's something that I can just have in a tote in my garage and be like, oh yeah, let's play on that desert board or whatever, and pull that down. So
and I think we're still working to get there. Oh God, but it's so much fun though.
It is. But I think to your point about the functional terrain, when it comes time to practice for events again, because this will pass and life will get back to hopefully just normal
life.
That's going to be really valuable to have, and it's going to be really valuable to have in my garage.
Yeah, true.
One of the things I wanted to say was I do have 2 young kids. Mm-hmm. My wife works full time and then some, so it's not always easy for me to leave the house and go down to the game store at the exact time that I've scheduled my game, and then sometimes it's just not, that night isn't the most convenient night. Mm-hmm. And with having a table at my house, it's a lot easier for me to be like, hey, I'm playing a game on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And whereas my wife's very supportive, so it wouldn't be an issue, but it's just harder to be like, okay, I'm going to leave the house for 4 hours on Saturday afternoon to go play 40K.
Yeah.
Here are the kids.
Yeah. Like we talked about, it's nice to leave the house. Sometimes though, you can't leave the house, and that's you're just, it's not something you can sort of plan around. You just don't know.
Yeah, or you just don't know, or she works hard. She deserves to relax on the weekends, and being with the 5-year-old and 6-year-old all day is not the most relaxing thing you can do in your time. So, it just depends. It's very fluid when you have young kids.
Yeah.
So being able to say, hey, we're gonna, Mark's gonna come over for a game on Saturday, and just have the kids kind of hanging out, and I can, we can pause the game, and I can go inside and grab them a snack or whatever it is.
Garagehammer's fluid. Like really, that's really what it is. I think that's what makes it so intriguing, but also just what makes it really cool. So because it's
super laid back.
It's just laid back. Yeah. And you do have access to all your snacks and all your drinks and all the other stuff too. That's nice too.
It is nice, actually. There'll be, the day will come when it's not 105. Yeah. When I have a couple people over, and while you and Michael are playing, I'll be barbecuing or something.
Yeah.
You can make a little evening of it.
Yeah.
It would be a lot of fun. So for me, it's a lot easier to get somebody. It's a lot easier for me in general to get in, if I want to get in that extra game a week, to have it be at my house and just be like, hey, come over on Saturday afternoon, we'll play for a little while. And
and the hardest thing though too is like, we could have done this anytime.
Yeah.
This just happened to sort of accelerate that. And there was really no reason to even try this, except that, well, we want to play now and we can't play. Like this forced the hand. So we could have had this going the whole time, but now that we do have it going, even when things get back to normal, we're still going to have it. Like you just got to take that first step. You just got to get it done.
Right. And I think that, there have been nights that I couldn't necessarily get everything together in time to get down to the game store and play a game. Because by the time I got there, it'd be like 7:30.
Yeah.
And you got set up. And now it's 8. They close at 10.
Yeah.
So it's like, But I could have somebody show up at my house at 7:30 and the terrain's already laid out. Yeah. My army's already down. Yeah. It's already at the table, ready to go.
Yep.
Like everything's already set up.
Yep.
And I can just show up and play.
Yeah.
Then that gives me that flexibility. So
for sure.
But again, like you said, it's not something I really felt. It was something since we lived here 2 years. I've been like, oh, it'd be cool that we don't use the garage. It'd be cool to have a table in there. But it's never something that I was like, okay, I'm going to buy the lumber for this table.
Yep.
Until I hadn't played a game in 2 months, 2.5 months, and was like,
yeah,
I want to play this game.
Yeah.
I want to play 9th edition. I want to play this game.
Yeah.
And that's when so I started to get the table. And even then it took me a month to just buy the darn lumber.
And even then, we're still working through the terrain rules. But, that's okay.
We're not going
the terrain rules, but the pieces of terrain that we want to have for the table.
Right.
We're still building the terrain or putting the terrain out there that's going to work really well, given the map that you have and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, for sure. All right, let's take a break. We're talking for a little bit, and let's hear a word from our sponsor, TraderA.com. If you're like most Warhammer players, you own a ton of models. At one time, you had big plans for these models, but now they just kind of sit, gathering dust, unused and unloved. It's time to clean out your closet of shame. Visit TraderA.com and get cash for your used models. Trader A is run by Captain A, someone who's been in the community a long time and has done a lot to grow the hobby. He's also a personal friend of the show. Unopened boxes, models on a sprue, half-built models, primed, painted, even bits have value. The process is simple. Send him a list of what you have, he'll send you a quote, you pack it up, send in your stuff, and he'll get you cash. You can shop around, but you're going to find that Trader A gives you 40% more than the other guys. You want it quick, you want to get rid of it, visit TraderA.com. Get cash to buy the stuff that you really want. TraderA.com. Sell your models and get your cash quick and easy. All right, and we're back. So one of the nice things about Garagehammer is you could sort of build an ongoing story with it. Because, especially if it's just you're playing with like your friend, it works really well for Crusade. Especially if you're just going to play two forces against each other, for several missions. I think Garagehammer is perfect for Crusade.
The thing I like about Crusade is it's flexible enough to where you can have different Crusade forces for different people coming over.
Yeah.
Who may not, because they may not interact. They may not play each other at your house per se.
Sure.
But you have different games against them independently.
Yeah.
You can have, you mix it up.
Yeah. And you can have multiple Crusade armies too. I mean, that's the whole thing that's cool about it, right? So Crusade is the stuff that happens between the missions, but with Garagehammer and the control you have over the terrain, you can make things really, really interesting.
Yeah.
You could set up a 4-mission Crusade structure with your friend and actually do something really, really cool. And very themed and very narrative.
Yeah, we should do that.
We did.
Oh, COVID.
Yeah, I know. The thing about it is that Garagehammer, you keep the social aspect of the game going,
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we talked about is we miss that. There's only so much you can do online. Tabletop simulators just not cutting it for the two of us. We want that social aspect, and the only way to get that is Garagehammer is really our outlet right now.
Yeah.
So
or recording podcasts.
Yeah, no, that too. Right now, I think it's the best way to learn the edition. I know that the points are a little wonky right now. So there's still sort of FAQs that I think we're sort of due coming out, after all this. It feels like it's the Wild West out there, but it's not. It's like there's a Wild West that could be happening, but no one's out there on the prairie. There's occasionally events going on, but we don't really know what's going on with this edition. And to me, I think it's like I would really be a little bit nervous about going to an event because I wouldn't know what's good, right?
Right.
Things aren't settled right now.
No, and I think we saw that last weekend.
Yeah.
Like the Salamanders list, like Harlequin's getting second at some event.
It was first, yeah. He went for he took first, yeah. So I don't know.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean Harlequins, yeah, okay. But is that the Harlequin list? Is that like the Eldar? Like who knows?
Are they even good? I don't know. I don't know.
Or is this somebody who has a lot of experience with this army playing well and having a good weekend and winning an event? Yeah. And, hats off to them.
Yep.
But, I mean, who knows? I don't know. We don't have the reps to really know kind of quantitatively this is a good list.
Yeah.
Or this was a good list last weekend.
Yeah. And I think, we started playing a little bit. We got some games in before the edition completely launched, and we've messed around with it quite a bit. We played as much as we could up until recently. We played about as much as we could, and we're still trying to kind of keep that going at a pace that makes sense for us, given what's going on.
Right.
But it's still, we're still trying to figure the missions out. We're still trying to figure out what kind of units work really well. There's still a lot of things to figure out when a new edition drops with brand new missions and all this kind of stuff. So. The 9th edition has a lot of small little changes that we're not quite used to.
Yeah.
And it's just best to do it now in the comfort of your home or going to your friend's home, learning these rules and kind of getting them wrong in a sort of safe environment.
Like, wait,
before
how
you
does
go
that
out
work?
and go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So this is probably the perfect time to learn this stuff and to play through Garagehammer.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was kind of evident about ninth, but you don't really. I didn't really internalize it until we'd played more than a few times.
Yeah, was
how much one thing I really like the 9th edition missions. I think they're interesting. I think the pregame is interesting. Mm-hmm. How you what units you take in your list change your secondaries so much.
Yeah,
that every single time you start a game, if you changed your list, you're going back through those secondaries, going, "What am I going to take?
Yep.
What can I do?
Yep.
I don't have any psychers. I can't do the little, there's no terrain in the middle of the table. I can't do this middle of the table thing. And, so it's interesting and it's engaging. And I like that I'm not just showing up and going, okay, well, I'm taking recon, I'm taking this, I'm taking gangbusters, whatever it is. But it does add to the kind of mental reps that you have to do, which I don't do. Like when I don't build lists to secondaries.
Sure.
Right. So I'm not sitting there going, oh, well, this list is going to be really good at X and Y.
Yeah.
It's another wrinkle. It's another thing that you don't really learn until you show up to the table. You see who you're playing against, what army you're playing. Then you pick secondaries, which I'm already just kind of questionable at. It's not a big strength of mine.
Yeah.
And then I'm playing the game and I'm like, why did I pick this secondary? This is terrible. I'm never taking this one again. It sounded so good in deployment. Now it's just nope.
Yeah. It's terrible.
But then you take a different list and the secondary looks better and maybe it is more achievable with a different list. So I think that's a wrinkle that 9th edition has that 8th edition didn't.
Yeah. But
it changes every game.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it keeps things fresh, but it doesn't increase the learning curve, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
That you only learn by
doing it. By doing it right there. Yeah. So we talked about Crusade, and I should take a second to just talk a little bit about the Battlehosts Crusade campaign. So we actually have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/the Battlehosts Crusade. There's no apostrophe there. It's just Battlehosts Crusade. And that is where we are going to kick off what we're going to be doing, basically. So it is a Facebook group, and the first mission launches September 1st, but we have the packet up there right now. So if you want to participate, you can go ahead and we actually have, I posted a link to a spreadsheet where you can download that and add your order of battle in. The Crusade Journal that Games Workshop sold, I think leaves a lot to be desired, I think, for sure. It
doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make sense. I think a spreadsheet works just fine. A Google Sheet is probably ideal.
It's just too bad. I wanted one so badly. I wanted to have that thing.
Yeah.
And the blank journal they sold would be a lot easier.
Bad.
Just the Primaris one that they sold I don't know, a couple years ago, whatever. But it's just aligned.
Yeah. It would be better than what they. Yeah. But anyways, the way the Crusade is going to work is it's a 7-mission escalation campaign. Every 2 weeks, a new mission is going to drop starting September 1st. And we're going to start off at 25 power level, and go all the way up to 100 power level at the 7th mission. I have
not
the
150?
No. Just 100.
I don't want to paint that many Space Marines anymore.
No. But it's going to basically, end around Christmas time frame, around December. The whole point, though, is that we have a storyline in place, and depending on how everyone does during the campaign and the missions and who's winning, which factions are winning, will dictate the outcome of the story. So we have the story, we have a rough outline, but we don't know who's going to win. We don't know which faction is going to, basically become victorious. We don't know those cool moments that happen during a campaign. That's up to everyone participating in this campaign.
Yeah.
So we're going to provide the missions, but we want everyone to post their results and tell us what are some cool things that happened. Post some pictures. Here's what happened in my mission against such and such. I'm playing this against this person here. Here's my order of battle. My sergeant named this did this really cool thing.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that we want to have people put into that Facebook group, because that will shape the narrative that we are writing as we go along. So that's really the whole point, is that we're going to provide a structure for you to play out a really cool Crusade campaign and influence a story. And that's I've done it before. It's worked really well. Crusade really makes it sing because it's such a great system for what happens between missions.
Yeah.
That I think it's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be great. And I think that it is going to be a fun opportunity to kind of develop, as we're not working towards like a competitive event, Escalation Crusade campaign is a great motivator to do some modeling, do some painting within the campaign itself. There'll be occasions to either add to your order of battle or just, upgrade a character, or give a character some new flair or whatever. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think that's why Garagehammer is going to make a lot of sense for a Crusade campaign. The thing about a lot of times with leagues and stuff is that you're doing a lot of pairing between players. We're not doing any of that. Players, you just get the game in with whomever. So it doesn't really matter who you play. You can play the same person over and over again. You can play somebody new each time. You can play against a competitive player who's not even playing Crusade, but as long as you're playing that mission at that power level / points, whatever you're using, doesn't matter. So the whole point, though, is that how you get your games in really is up to you. But when you do, whatever that result is, let us know, because that's going to make the difference with the story. So it's facebook.com/the Battlehosts Crusade. And I'll post a link in the show, and we'll post it on our own Facebook. But join us, take part in it, post your results. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so that's all we got. So thank you so much for listening to our show. We love to hear from our listeners, so please feel free to message us on Facebook or email us at thebattlehosts@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, you can help us in a few different ways. You can tell your friends about us. You can like us on Facebook. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can leave a review on iTunes, which does help to boost our listening audience. Finally, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thebattlehosts. For as little as $1 a month, you can help us with the cost of running this show and staying engaged with the 40K community. So thanks for listening to Battle Hosts.
I'm Colin.
Oh, that's just not how it goes.
No, that's the independent characters.
So you say, remember to be a better
gamer
and build a better community. Good night.